One man is being victimized by our own government. One man whom they fear, yet whom millions love. One man who is willing to take the poison arrows of lawfare. One man whose voice has been taken away by a corrupt judge operating in a corrupt system. One man who has been ridiculed and insulted. One man who refused to back down. One man who refused to back down. One man who refused to back down. One man who stands between us and them. One man that wants to see America protected again. One man who wants to see America prosper again. One man who understands that a man is a man and a woman is a woman. One man who understands and protects the blessing of life. One man who wants to restore American exceptionalism. One man who once again wants to make America that shining city on a hill for all to see. A place where all the people of the world glowingly set their eyes upon. America. One man who unashamedly wants to make America great again. That one man is Donald Trump.
This is Fanfare with Barry Cunningham.
Deepest sympathies on an unimaginable tragedy and the horror of the last 24 hours. Also a deep thank you to Minnesotans and those across the country. I understand a fund has been set up to support Renee's 6-year-old child and wife. Other things being done. I would encourage Minnesotans and folks across the country in this moment. You're seeing neighborliness and kindness rise to the occasion. Is go and find out what they're doing there and give some help if you can. I'd also say last night we saw Minnesotans meet the moment once again. Thousands of Minnesotans demonstrated last night peacefully. They shared a message about the reckless ICE mobilization is not keeping us safe and led to the tragedy that the world witnessed once again. To Minnesota, I say thank you. There's strength in numbers, there's power in peace, and what we saw was a beautiful vigil to a life that we're starting to learn more about. And I will let those that want to push out false narratives, to slander or defame Renee Good, Minnesotans will tell her life story. Minnesotans will be there to defend her honor and see this as a human being, not a moment in time or the callous casualness that I've watched some people on TV gloss over what they saw. We've also spent a lot of time talking last 24 hours about accountability. That means no function of government operates with impunity. It means when someone's in a position of authority and they commit any act that impacts our people, there has to be another place to turn to get justice, checks and balances. Basic idea, the center of the formation of our country. It's the only measure that protects us from the abuse of government or federal overreach or tyrannical government. Yesterday, the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, the BCA, spent the day yesterday attempting to get that accountability. We have learned that the Trump administration has now denied the state that ability to participate in the investigation. And I just want to make this as clear as possible to everyone. Minnesota must be part of this investigation. These are nonpartisan career professionals that have spent years building the trust of the community. There's a BCA Force Investigations Unit that was created by the legislature, by the people of Minnesota, to provide an independent, consistent, and trusted mechanism for investigating the use of force incidents involving law enforcement officers. Minnesota has seen our share of these. And what you've seen is, and I have witnessed it during my time, that these professionals have risen to the moment. They are trusted by people. People who are not by inclination trusting of law enforcement or government have come to see the professionals at the BCA as true arbitrators that can get them justice. The unit is the result of years of scrutiny, public engagement, and bipartisan legislative action. Minnesotans have made it clear time and again they expect transparency through this process where a police officer uses deadly force. The BCA, Superintendent Evans, have earned that trust by delivering on that expectation. I think it's clear to everyone as they saw this that it feels now that Minnesota has been taken out of the investigation. It feels very, very difficult that we will get a fair outcome. And I say that only because people in positions of power have already passed judgment, from the president to the vice president to Kristi Noem, have stood and told you things that are verifiably false, verifiably inaccurate. They have determined the character of a 37-year-old mom that they didn't even don't know. They've determined that the actions are done. I don't know. I've not used inflammatory terms of what happened. I've asked us to find the answers. The only way we find the answers is a thorough investigation by nonpartisan professionals. We've delivered that. We've been able to do it. We've earned the trust. And when I say that, the trust of BCA, and I tell Minnesotans the trust of law enforcement here. Everyone knows, globally, certainly here, that George Floyd, who was murdered a few blocks from this site, tore at the soul of who we were. But we healed. We built back trust. Chief Brian O'Hara came in and took one of the most difficult jobs in America of building back trust in the police force in Minneapolis after Derek Chauvin murdered George Floyd. And he's earned that. And he's level. And he's fair. And he's asking for that. And so, Minnesotans, I will continue to press that we be part of the investigation, that we do the investigation, so that Minnesotans can trust what the outcome is. I don't have a predetermined notion. Yes, I saw the video. Yes, I saw that. But a thorough investigation will see what happened before that. It will take all factors in, and it will come up with a fair and just conclusion. And we will accept that. Very, very difficult for Minnesotans to think in any way this is going to be fair when Kristi Noem was judge, jury, and basically executioner yesterday. That's very, very difficult to think that they were going to be fair. With that being said, Minnesotans, we've risen to the occasion so far, but it's going to get challenging. It's going to be challenging because I feel your anger. The human desire to lash out in this moment is very real. I can tell you that that is the wish of many people, that they fulfill the wish they want to see us turn on one another, turn towards violence rather than peaceful reconciliation, rather than peaceful civil disobedience. And we have to do our best to not play into that. I say this too when I saw yesterday some of the anger, whether it's Minneapolis Police, Minnesota State Patrol, Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, Minnesota National Guard. They are there to protect and serve, as it said. They are there to protect Minnesotans. Throwing your anger at them only inflames this situation. And I know some of you were up at the Whipple building this morning, and to the press who are here, I saw some of this myself. Thank you. Continue to have access to every single space. Continue to cover this story. Continue to show the world what's out there. I will say it where our president won't. The press are the defenders of our democracy. You need to be there. But I also tell folks, protect our Minnesotans who are out there and don't turn the anger to them. This is a brazen use of force. They want us to bend the knee. They want us to capitulate. The way we give them what they want is allow them to use this as an excuse to put more troops on the ground. Use them as an excuse to show that these are violent protests. And I also witnessed what I think is going to be a pattern over the next few days and the coming hours, is I saw an individual show up there with the intent to antagonize folks who were peacefully protesting, with a bullhorn to scream at them. And again, the desire to move on that individual is exactly what they want, because our respect for the First Amendment means we will expect and respect all opinions. If this individual is there expressing support for ICE, that's their constitutional right to do so, and they need to be protected. Don't allow that to be a catalyst to create violence. We believe in states' rights. We believe the federal government needs to stay out of this. We believe that the situation has gotten worse and less safe because of their presence. And I will just say there were two incidents yesterday I saw after this that just tore at my soul. I saw an individual at the scene identify themselves as medical personnel, a physician, and asked to provide aid, and an ICE agent said, "I do not care." That lack of humanity was chilling to me. And after this incident happened, and after the tensions rose, ICE agents entered a Minnesota school, causing disruptions at that school. I can't say this strongly enough as governor, as a parent, as a teacher, to our elected representatives, Democrats and Republicans. I beg you, I implore you to tell them to stay out of our schools. This tragedy will be magnified 100-fold if this fight moves into the hallways of our public schools amongst our youth. And they're watching us. They're watching us now, how we respond. So I've got a few simple asks. Let us, the professionals, handle this on Minnesota soil, this investigation. De-escalate this situation by removing yourselves from this situation with these 2,000 agents that were put here. And above all else, stay out of our schools. I'd like to ask you to care, but that might be a step too far for some people. But I know Minnesotans care. So we'll protest peacefully. We will win in courts. We will certainly win in the defense of our democracy, because the American people see what's happening here. But the way that we don't win and the way that we lose, if this turns towards violence and allows them to escalate, it cannot happen. So I ask the grass top leaders out there, the faith leaders, the folks who are on the streets, and in many times the true leaders are not the elected officials. They're the folks on the ground. I beg you, implore you, follow those words of the leaders we've had. I had the privilege of serving with John Lewis. And John talked about good trouble. I'm not telling you not to find good trouble. But I asked John many times, I said, "John, I don't know if I'd have your self-restraint. Didn't you want to lash out?" He said, "Yes, daily." But he said, "I wanted to win this. I wanted to do what's right, and I wanted justice to prevail. And to do that, I knew the only way was to not lash out, to not give in to that." So to each and every one of you, we're not going to win this through violence. We're going to win it through justice. We're going to win it through compassion. We're going to win it through Minnesota Nice, and we're going to win it by holding every one of these people accountable, as they should, for what we've seen on the streets of Minneapolis. With that, I'm going to turn to Commissioner Jacobson to give you a situation update.
So, welcome. Well, as usual, we get something planned. We're going to have a nice show, a nice day. And then all of a sudden, we find out there's a briefing with Karoline Leavitt and JD Vance. And so I had to rush over here and put something together. I think I've got together a good show. We're actually right at about 1 o'clock where Karoline may be coming on. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the movie OPM, Other People's Money, with Danny DeVito. And Danny DeVito plays Larry the Liquidator. And Larry the Liquidator is trying to take over this cable company up in New Hampshire or New England someplace, because what he does is, you know, back then when they had corporate raiders, he would go in and he would find a company that, because of their asset base, chop up the land, chop up the inventory, all these different things, that a company was worth more dead than the company was worth alive, and it would sell it off. And he gave a speech in the movie reference to the people like Tim Waltz who were trying to hang on to something, trying to hang on to this ideology from the 60s, trying to hang on to some crazy, insane fight, as Tim Waltz was just saying. And it reminded me what Larry the Liquidator actually said in the movie. He walked up on stage after they all cried and moaned and everything, and he goes, "Amen, amen, amen." He goes, "Where I come from, we call that a prayer. We just heard a prayer. Unfortunately, it's a prayer for the dead. I didn't kill it. It was dead long before any of us got here. And I'm going to appropriate that and say that's exactly what you just heard. A prayer for the dead. We didn't kill it. It's dead. That entire mindset is dead. That's what President Trump keeps saying. This was a dead country. What they are thinking, the communistic way, the socialistic way, it's dead. And what you're hearing these people keep saying is a prayer for the dead. He said a couple things. He lied when he said the EMS guy said something nasty to the physician. I covered that last night. The reason why many of you may not have seen it unless you're on X is because it shows a woman's face blown off and the physician saying, "I'm a physician, I can help." And the ICE officer saying, "No, we have our own people." That's what he said. And you could tell by the officer's reaction what he actually meant. Long guys out there. What he actually meant was, she's already dead. There's nothing you can do. There's no reason I'm going to let you into a crime scene. We've already assessed the situation, and she's gone. So that's not what the guy said. He didn't say, "I don't need you, go away." That's not what he said at all. His exact words were, "We already have EMS on the scene." And then some lady screamed and said, "I don't see them." Well, you don't see them because we don't need EMS. We need a hearse. They didn't want to accept that. The other thing he said, which just made me want to scream, is when he said Kristi Noem and President Trump are passing judgment. And we don't pass judgment here. Oh, really? Oh, really? When did that start? Because as far as I know, every single one of these politicians from the left were saying she was murdered. Murder is a legal term. Murder means you've been convicted. She wasn't murdered. What's the other word they're using? Assassinated. Charlie Kirk was assassinated. Charlie Kirk was sitting on a chair. John F. Kennedy was riding in a limousine. This lady confronted cops. No judgment, eh? The other thing he said, we're supposed to trust them. How can we trust you when we see how you are already acting? The different things that you will do just to try and curry favor with absolute nuts. We absolutely see what you guys have done. We understand how all the different things that you guys have been saying and doing is complete BS. And I love this one because I'm looking at the chat on one of the bigger screens here. And the question I have is, who is they? You know, as far as I'm concerned, and I could be wrong, this is supposed to be the United States of America. United States of America. Who is they? Well, they say this, and they say that. There is no they. We are all supposed to be the United States of America, but obviously, that's not where we are. We are no longer the United States of America. As I've said for quite some time, the Civil War has already begun, just that some people don't realize it. Some people don't get it. They are not part of the United States. They do not have the American mentality. They are doing everything they can to destroy the American way of life. How do I know that? The notes. What did you hear over, and over? We got to keep fighting. What exactly are you fighting, and what exactly are you fighting for? Are you fighting for America? You're fighting for Somalia? You're fighting for Venezuela? What exactly are you fighting for? I don't think America comes anywhere in that top 5 list. Nobody in the press asks these questions. This is why they don't want me asking. I'm like, hey man, who are you fighting? Who's the enemy? Oh, you are now confirming what I and others have been saying for quite some time. You are the enemy from within. You are. You're exemplifying what we have been saying. There's no fight to be had here. Which goes to the next word he kept saying. We are going to win. Win what? Why are you saying words like fight and win? And I'm thinking to myself, do not people in the press, do they not think to themselves, maybe we should ask these questions? Who exactly are you fighting? Who is they? And what do you expect to win? And who do you expect to lose? I don't get it. Doesn't make any sense to me who you expect to see lose. What was something else he said? Let me go to Fox while these guys are buzzing around with weed whackers and everything else here, right?
Oh, Walz is out there now saying that he thinks he might have to mobilize the National Guard in Minnesota to protect Minnesotans from federal officers and ICE officers who are endangering the community. We would expect to hear from the vice president any minute about that, and also about this litmus test that J.D. Vance sees. Now, he posted on social media that he wants all Democrats, including those who are running for president and seeking office in the midterms, to answer a question. Do you think this officer was wrong in defending his life against a deranged leftist who tried to run him over? So there are questions about what exactly happened. There are questions about rhetoric on both sides that we would expect addressed any minute. Sandra.
Okay. We will jump back in there as soon as that is underway. Peter Doocy live in the White House press briefing room for us. Peter, thank you.
You know, if we ask those questions like he just said, are you going to begin asking the right questions, media? What J.D. Vance just posted or what she reported is exactly what I was just saying. Who is they? What is the fight? And who do you expect to win? And who do you expect to lose? You've got to be drawing those lines at this point. The other thing he mentioned, which makes absolutely zero sense, and it's akin to the term fair share, because it's like unicorns and fairies, it doesn't exist. What exactly is a, quote, peaceful protest? Because everything I'm looking at when I turn on the news and I look at pictures on X, there's nothing peaceful about it. And they are encouraging more of that peaceful protest. What exactly is a peaceful protest? It ain't this.
The witnesses yesterday, who are all well-respected state legislators who were under oath, testified before a national...
If somebody, and I'm going to show you a video, if somebody is trying to get home and you're blocking the road and you're not in Florida, because down here we have the permission from the governor, run you to hell over. So if you're not in Florida and you come up across somebody, and when you come up across somebody, they're blocking the road. Is that peaceful? Not if I got to get home to my wife. Not if I have to go pick up my children. None of that is peaceful. See, I guess we're into my show right now as we're waiting for Karoline. A good thing I had stuff ready, because now I can just keep going. We'll cut to her when she comes on. I want to show you a video, and it's especially timely right now, given what you just heard Tim Walz say about, we're not passing judgment or anything. Let's listen.
This is Gestapo-like behavior. Plainclothes officers wearing masks are terrorizing immigrants.
The ICE issue is alarming beyond words. Masked men jumping out of unmarked cars, people disappearing, no due process. We're being hyperbolic. If you're a black and brown community, it's here. Wake up.
Dangers that we saw in Nazi Germany, especially in the earliest days of Nazi Germany, are the dangers that we need to react to now. They're taking people off the streets and sending them away. It's a 5-alarm fire, everyone.
Every single ICE agent who's engaged in this aggressive overreach and are trying to hide their identities from the American people will be unsuccessful in doing that. This is not the 1930s, and every single one of them, no matter what it takes, no matter how long it takes, will of course be identified.
Donald Trump's modern day Gestapo is scooping folks up off the streets. They're in unmarked vans, wearing masks, being shipped off to foreign torture dungeons. No chance to mount a defense, not even a chance to kiss a loved one goodbye. Just grabbed up by masked agents, shoved into those vans, and disappeared. We need to make sure that there's a firewall that they have to come through before they get to them.
Early evidence that we've seen from rounds that were found near the suspected shooter contain messages that are anti-ICE in nature. Again, this is just the most recent example of this type of attack.
Disrupting traffic, idiots. You can't do that. That's against the law. Wilding, I'm not start doing business, bro. I'm not gonna run you over. Get away from my car, bro. Okay, whoa. Get away from my car. Get away from my car. Bro, get away from my car. I have a daughter in Brooklyn. Don't touch him. Get in your car. Get the fuck out of the way. Run him over. Don't touch him. Get out of the way. I have to get home.
We have trust and inherent goodness. When you're on the road today or tomorrow and you're driving someplace and you go up to a red light, it's an inanimate object with 3 colors. There's a red light, a yellow light, and a green light. And based upon those 3 lights that you're looking at, you're fidgeting with your phone and you're checking the radio and talking to the kids or the wife, and you're waiting for this light to tell you it's okay to do something. Now, understand the only reason that you're looking at this stoplight, waiting for it to turn, even though you have to get someplace, man, this is the longest light ever, is because you're a good person. You're a good person because you're willing to stay there because this inanimate machine with lights is telling you what you can and can't do. There is no other reason. If you want to try to weave between traffic and hopefully dodging the dump truck, you can. If you don't get caught, you don't get a ticket, you can most assuredly, I'm going to go through it. There are these things that come down at train crossings. And these train crossings, it's a little bit different there. It's a lot different, actually, because the thing that's guarding that, you can run through it, but there's no returning if that thing messes up and you get smushed by a fast-coming train. But nonetheless, the only thing that's stopping you from running through that barrier is yourself, is your goodness. You see, the Democrats and these so-called protesters rely on your goodness. It's one of the Alinsky rules for radicals. Use your own faith, whether it be faith in a machine, whether it be faith in God, whatever that is, your vow to your spouse, whatever it is, they want to use your vow against you. You can't do this. Why? Because you can't run us over. You're impeding my ability to go see my kids. That's okay. We're going to hold hands here and peacefully protest. The only thing stopping that person from becoming roadkill is that there are good people who don't want to take bad actions. Many of us that own our own guns, we hope we will never have to use the guns in our house. Why? Because we're good people. We don't choose to just, blow somebody away. What happens in this country when good people stop being good? What happens in this country when people say, the good people, I'm done with this bullcrap. I'm done with you people having your sit-ins. I'm done with whatever it is they're doing in Minnesota right now. I'm done with it. What happens when they realize that the good people are not putting up with your bad crap anymore? Then it's anarchy. Then it's lots of death. Then it's full-on civil war the way it's normally described. You see, what you just saw with that man in that car is we're getting close. I also posted earlier, I went to the store on the way over here and going through a pack store, and nobody's talking about this. This only exists for the most part on X, Twitter, Facebook, where those of us who are news junkies are talking about it. It won't exist this weekend when you see the NFL games. Again, I've mentioned this for 5 months. The stadiums are packed. People aren't shying away. They're going to the games. I'm sure the game, when is Minnesota in the playoffs, I don't know. They'll have a moment of silence. But for the most part, 50, 60, 70,000 people are going to these games to enjoy life. These people in Minnesota don't enjoy life. And they want you to not enjoy life, and they want to take that joy away from you. You have to don't let them. I don't want to see any of you good people resort to bad things. And I think that's where we're headed very quickly. And I think that's why we're going to need the Insurrection Act, because we're going to have to stop this virus that's running wild in some of these blue cities. I say that because ain't nothing happening here in Boca. Probably nothing happening where you live. But it's blown out of proportion because of the news and the media. It's unfortunate that this woman lost her life. But, and this doesn't make me callous or cold, it was her choice. Life is made up of the grand total sum of choices. What you choose to eat, what you choose to wear, where you choose to go, who you choose to date, who you choose to marry, whether you have children, whether you don't have children, whether you remove children. Everything is a choice. And I had a discussion with somebody today, and they feel like, well, you're right, Barry, because I can end every single one of these conversations. She chose to leave her house, leave her child, to go interfere with law enforcement, period. Stop, full stop. If she did not make that choice, nothing else would have happened. Whether or not she decided to run him over, whether she panicked, whether he panicked, none of that matters when you break it down to the original choice that she made. She and her wife. She chose. And from what we're finding out, she's made that choice quite often, that she was going to do everything she could to impede law enforcement. So let's break it all the way back to that. That choice that she made. I didn't make it, you didn't make it, Trump didn't make it, Kristi Noem didn't make it, the officer who shot didn't make it. She chose to leave her house and go do what she did. I'm not saying she deserved to die. All I'm saying is it's a choice. Just like you're going to have plenty of choices as we move forward here, and what you need to do and how you need to do it. And hopefully, as you move forward, that green, red, and yellow light that you see every day still has meaning to you. You're still a good person. But I'm telling you, if you pull up to the light and somebody comes walking up to your door from this side or that side, or they sit in front of you, that light isn't going to matter anymore. And that's when all hell breaks loose. And you then at that point, and well, if you lived in Florida, you have full permission from the governor to take them out, which is why you don't see that shit happening down here. Yes, I understand we're privileged. Yes, it's so lucky to be under the government of a guy who doesn't take the bull crap. Now, many of you guys didn't know it. That actually got passed. It got passed as a law down here that it's basically an extension of stand your ground. No, you cannot impede my progress. You're going to get what you get. I'm not going to wait until you break my window. I'm not going to wait until you shoot. If I feel like you're impeding, you might not make it home. And again, that's your choice, not mine. Not mine at all. All right, so 122, she's still not up. I see all the press is gathered in the room, however. Let's see what happens, but I'll keep going.
Order to prepare the Minnesota National Guard. We have soldiers in training and prepared to be deployed if necessary. I remind you, a warning order is a heads up for folks. And these National Guard troops are our National Guard troops. They're teachers in your community. They're business owners. They're construction professionals. They are Minnesotans. Minnesota will not allow our community to be used as a prop in a national political fight. We will not take the bait. We will continue to update you, Minnesota, as we get more information. Now I'd like to turn it over to Commissioner Best.
When did it become illegal to follow ICE agents around?
It's illegal to engage in obstruction of federal law enforcement.
Is it
not? Is it a felony?
They're not impeding.
It is a felony.
She was filming, right? She's filming them.
The euphemisms are what are going to cause this thing to completely break crazy. No, you don't. You're not doing anything wrong by following somebody around. Try it on your own and see what happens, though. I mean, there's not a lot of people who, dude, what are you doing? Oh, I have the right to follow you around. Well, then guess what? What about my right not to have you stalking me, you friggin' idiots? I'm pretty sure there are laws against stalking. Do the Democrats not believe in anything good? When has it become a law? I can't follow you around. Huh? Lord help us. Lord help us. These people are going on television saying this kind of stuff. I'm telling you right now, if Scott Jennings has said, you know what? She's looking pretty good. I'm just going to follow her around, see what happens. He's going to go to jail. What do you mean, when did it become a law that I can't follow somebody around? Every time stuff comes out of their mouths, I say to myself, these people are bat poop crazy. Let me tell you something. SB just posted, President Trump posted 20 minutes ago, and it's a big one. Republicans should be ashamed of the senators that just voted with Democrats in attempting to take away our powers to fight and defend the United States of America. Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, Rand Paul, the usual suspects. But Josh Hawley and Todd Young should never be elected to office again. This vote greatly hampers American self-defense and national security, impeding the president's authority as commander-in-chief. In any event, and despite their stupidity, the War Powers Act is unconstitutional, totally violating Article 2 of the Constitution, as all presidents and their departments of justice have determined before me. Nevertheless, a more important Senate vote will be taking place next week on this very subject. So with everything happening, they're trying to limit, the Democrats and Josh Hawley, I cannot believe Josh Hawley's on that list, are trying to inhibit his ability to do the things he needs to do. I just look at that as just one more brick in the wall. Maybe we should play that tonight on Rumble, another brick in the wall, because they are building the bricks for him to take down and do the Insurrection Act. This is insane what they're doing. It's already been determined that he can do these things. These people obviously haven't read Article 2. They're freaking out, which tells me they should be the first ones that you look at. This country will not be a red, yellow, and green country very soon if this stuff isn't stopped. We have to get it stopped. And unfortunately, if President Trump does what he has to do, it's going to get ugly. It'll get real ugly.
Because ICE agents have been known to kill people, because people are disappearing in custody, because we're missing 1,200 people in Alligator Alcatraz.
This is the political vigilantism.
This is not political vigilantism.
You're encouraging people to interfere with federal law enforcement.
I'm saying that we need to get it on tape because the DHS is lying, because ICE is lying, and because people are getting hurt.
I think that
and they're disappearing.
There is obvious.
We can't win this. We, America. Not we, Republicans. America cannot sustain this. We cannot continue to have these idiots spew this stuff that other idiots soak up with a biscuit and then decide they're going to get in their own cars and go out there and impede law enforcement. It's amazing. That's why I try to limit as much of the libtard stuff as I see, because they're not representative of real America.
Amnesty International just did an entire thing on ICE.
But hold on.
Amnesty International, that's not me being a Democrat.
Between.
I want to be clear that these schools are being closed, in Minneapolis out of incredible, precaution and concern for the safety of students.
This woman gets killed and they shut down the school system. What threat is there against the kids in school? Who's looking to go after kids in school? The reason why they closed the schools is because ICE is surging, and a lot of the parents of the kids in school who drop off little Jose or whatever, she's on. Okay, I'll be back. Hold that, all right? So let's listen into what's going on today.
Stand fully behind the heroic men and women of ICE and will always uphold law and order in the United States of America. The deadly incident that took place in Minnesota yesterday occurred as a result of a larger, sinister, left-wing movement that has spread across our country, where our brave men and women of federal law enforcement are under organized attack. Right now, immigration and customs enforcement officers are facing a 1,200% increase in assaults, a 3,200% increase in vehicle rammings, and an 8,000% increase in death threats. ICE agents are faithfully enforcing federal law to protect the safety of the American people by removing criminal illegal aliens from our country, which is exactly what nearly 80 million Americans elected President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance to do. Radicals in the Democrat Party are furious over this. They don't want our border secured or criminal illegal aliens being removed. As a result, Democrats are impeding immigration enforcement operations daily, creating extremely heightened and dangerous circumstances that make it nearly impossible for the men and women of law enforcement to simply do their jobs. Democrats are calling to defund federal law enforcement agencies who are protecting public safety. And Democrats are calling to abolish ICE and defund the police. That will never be allowed to happen under this president and vice president. The Trump administration will redouble our efforts to get the worst of the worst, criminal illegal alien killers, rapists, and pedophiles off of American streets. The Department of Homeland Security will continue to operate on the ground in Minnesota, not only to remove criminal illegal aliens, but also to continue conducting door-to-door investigations of the rampant fraud that has taken place in the state under the failed and corrupt leadership of Democrat Governor Tim Walz. Taxpayers have been ripped off to the tune of billions of dollars in this one state alone, and that is going to end, and people are going to be held accountable. The Trump administration has activated thousands of federal agents, doubled the number of U.S. attorneys in the DOJ office in Minneapolis, and surged resources to hold fraudsters accountable and demand justice for law-abiding American taxpayers and citizens across our country. And that's what brings the Vice President out here with me today to discuss all the Trump administration is doing and to make an additional important announcement on this front. So please, Mr. Vice President, will be joining us now.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Thank you.
Great. Well, good afternoon, everybody. And I want to echo some of what Carolyn said about what we're doing to combat the rampant fraud that exists in our immigration system, thanks to failed politicians and thanks to people who allowed the American taxpayer to be taken advantage of for far too long. I think it's important to understand why this matters to the American people. I am a father of 3 young kids, a lot of people in my generation. What is that going on there? Is that normal? Okay. CNN installed this broken camera just to throw me off my game, but it's not going to work. So here's the simple fact here. If you're a young parent struggling to afford childcare in the United States of America, there are programs that we have to make it easier for your kids to get in daycare, for your kids to get in preschool. Those programs should go to American citizens, not be defrauded by Somali immigrants and others. Make it hard for you to get the access to the resources you need. But number 2, making it easier for people who shouldn't even be in this country to fleece the United States and our taxpayers to begin with. We have actually activated a major interagency task force to make it possible to get to the heart of this fraud. We have Department of Agriculture resources that are focused on SNAP fraud so that people who need food benefits can get them, but illegal aliens and other fraudsters don't. We have over 1,500 subpoenas that the Department of Justice has issued to get to the heart of the fraud ring. We've done almost 100 indictments, mostly Somali immigrants, but also a few others. And of course, we're looking in with broad investigatory authority to a number of the instances of wrongdoing that we've seen in Minneapolis. But we also want to expand this. We know that the fraud isn't just happening in Minneapolis, it's also happening in states like Ohio. It's happening in states like California. And so what we're doing in order to help coordinate this remarkable interagency effort from the Trump administration, but also to make sure that we prosecute the bad guys and do it as swiftly and efficiently as possible, is we are creating a new Assistant Attorney General position who will have nationwide jurisdiction over the issue of fraud. Now, of course, that person's efforts will start and focus primarily in Minnesota, but it is going to be a nationwide effort because, unfortunately, the American people have been defrauded in a very nationwide way. I want to thank a couple of people for their cooperation, in particular Pam Bondi, our Attorney General, first of all, for getting a lot of resources to Minneapolis to start to investigate and prosecute this fraud, really at an industrial scale. We've never seen fraud like this in the history of our country. Pam has been doing a great job to get the resources there to uncover it, but importantly, creating a job like this often takes months, sometimes even longer. When we realized that we needed this Associate Attorney General position, Pam got this person up and running in about a week. We're going to make the nomination hopefully in the next few days. We'll obviously let you guys know who that is when we do it. I've talked to Senate Majority Leader John Thune, who has promised me swift confirmation for this official, but this is the person who is going to make sure that we stop defrauding the American people. And here's one final thing I'll say about this. I've heard a lot of people say that we need a special counsel to investigate fraud in the United States of America. I actually agree, and that's what this position does. It has all the benefits, all the resources, all the authority of a special counsel, but with two crucial differences. Number one, it will be run out of the White House under the supervision of me and the President of the United States. And number two, it's actually constitutionally legitimate. As you guys may know, the special counsel statute has some major constitutional questions. When we get the bad guys, we want to make sure we get them permanently and they don't have some legal technicality they can get out of, which is why we set it up as an associate attorney general. I'll take some questions, but I want to make just one final observation here. When I was actually walking out here, somebody sent me a photo of a CNN headline about what happened in Minneapolis. And this is the headline. I'm just going to read it. Outrage after ICE officer kills U.S. citizen in Minneapolis. Well, that's one way to put it, and that is the way that many people in the corporate media have put this attack over the last 24 hours. And I say attack very, very intentionally, because this was an attack on federal law enforcement. This was an attack on law and order. This was an attack on the American people. The way that the media, by and large, has reported this story has been an absolute disgrace, and it puts our law enforcement officers at risk every single day. What that headline leaves out is the fact that that very ICE officer nearly had his life ended, dragged by a car 6 months ago, 33 stitches in his leg. So you think maybe he's a little bit sensitive about somebody ramming him with an automobile? What that headline leaves out is that that woman was there to interfere with a legitimate law enforcement operation in the United States of America. What that headline leaves out is that that woman is part of a broader left-wing network to attack, to dox, to assault, and to make it impossible for our ICE officers to do their job. If the media wants to tell the truth, they ought to tell the truth that a group of left-wing radicals have been working tirelessly, sometimes using domestic terror techniques to try to make it impossible for the President of the United States to do what the American people elected him to do, which is enforce our immigration laws. The President stands with ICE. I stand with ICE. We stand with all of our law enforcement officers. And part of that is recognizing that you people in the media, not everybody in this room, but many people in this room have been lying about this attack. She was trying to ram this guy with her car. He shot back. He defended himself. He's already been seriously wounded in law enforcement operations before, and everybody who's been repeating the lie that this is some innocent woman who was out for a drive in Minneapolis when a law enforcement officer shot at her, you should be ashamed of yourselves. Every single one of you. Questions?
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I wanted to read a quote from Tim Walz earlier today. He said, "When things looked bleak, it was Minnesota's first that held the line for the nation on July 3rd, 1863, and I think we may be in that moment now." Can you comment on his rhetoric and Mayor Jacob Frey and whether they want to see unrest in Minneapolis?
Well, that's very tough rhetoric from a guy who just quit because his fraudulent activities have been uncovered. Look, Tim Walz is a joke. His entire administration has been a joke. The idea that he's some sort of freedom fighter, he's not. He's a guy who has enabled fraud and maybe, in fact, has participated in fraud. That's what this new Assistant Attorney General position is going to find out. I don't care what Tim Walz says. I care about getting to the bottom of this fraud for the American people, and I care about enforcing the nation's immigration laws. That's what we're going to stay focused on.
A related question here. I mean, Democrats have accused ICE of murder. They've said they're targeting Americans. They've told ICE to get the F out of Minnesota. This is going to stoke the fire against ICE agents. And you're talking about ICE agents right now and being concerned about them. What, if anything, is the administration going to do to make sure these folks are protected during these protests? But also, should DHS sort of revisit their procedures here? I mean, nobody wants to see an American killed. Are there changes that need to be made to make sure something like this doesn't happen again?
Look, first of all, of course, nobody wants an American citizen to be killed. This is absolutely a tragedy, but it's a tragedy of the making of the far left. They have radicalized a very small segment of the population, taught them that ICE agents are engaging in wide-scale violation of people's rights. What our ICE officers are doing is deporting the millions of criminal aliens that were let in during the Biden administration. So number one, we have to say, as a matter of leadership, and I would appreciate if the Democrats would join me on this, let's be honest about the fact that we have way too many illegal aliens in this country. Our ICE officers should be supported in doing their job. You're trying to actually marshal the far left lunatic fringe to engage in doxing, to try to make it impossible for them to enforce the law, and in some cases actually to engage in acts of domestic terrorism against our law enforcement officers. When you talk about different plans, different protocols, different policies, I forget exactly how you asked the question. Here's the simple fact. What we're going to do is make it easier for the American People's Administration to enforce the American people's law. And that means that Democrats have to stop rallying the mob against legitimate law enforcement operations. And that means that we are going to get tougher, and that's what this AAG position is about. We're going to get tougher at the people who are defrauding the United States by inciting violence against our law enforcement officers. That's one of the things that we're going to do. We've already started that work at the Department of Justice, but we're going to keep on doing it, and this new AAG position is going to kick that into high gear.
Vice President Vance, you just suggested that this woman who was killed, Renee Good, is part of a broader left-wing network. Who do you think is behind this broader left-wing network?
Well, it's one of the things we're going to have to figure out, but here's the way that I put it. When somebody throws a brick at an ICE agent, or somebody tries to run over an ICE agent, who paid for the brick? And who told protesters to show up and engage in violent activity against our law enforcement officers? You see, just with this most recent terrible incident in Minneapolis, you see friends of this woman's or other people who are eyewitnesses saying basically that she was there to engage in obstruction of a legitimate law enforcement operation. How did she get there? How did she learn about this? There's an entire network, and frankly, some of the media are participating in it, that is trying to incite violence against our law enforcement officers. It's ridiculous, it's preposterous, and part of our investigatory work is getting to the bottom of it. Who's funding it? Who's supporting it? Who's cheerleading it? And of course, if there's illegal activity related to that, we're going to get to the bottom of that and prosecute it where we can.
Vice President, thank you for taking questions today. Is there a risk with you describing her as a deranged leftist, talking about very specific facts of these events, when an investigation is just beginning? Are you preempting a thorough investigation by drawing such conclusions? And have you received any information beyond the videos we've seen publicly about this individual, her specific acts, that has informed your point of view?
Well, first of all, the Department of Justice is going to investigate this. The Department of Homeland Security is already investigating this. But the simple fact is, what you see is what you get in this case. You have a woman who was trying to obstruct a legitimate law enforcement operation. Nobody debates that. You have a woman who aimed her car at a law enforcement officer and pressed on the accelerator. Nobody debates that. I can believe that her death is a tragedy, while also recognizing that it's a tragedy of her own making and a tragedy of the far left, who has marshaled an entire movement, a lunatic fringe, against our law enforcement officers. I think what is clearly happening here, and it's going to keep on happening unless the Democrats wake up and say, you know what, you don't have to agree with our immigration policies. You don't have to agree with what the president or the vice president believe about immigration enforcement, but why don't you take this to the ballot box? Why don't you vote? Why don't you organize? Instead, what some of them are doing is encouraging people to get violent with our law enforcement officials. It's disgraceful, and it's got to stop.
Just to follow up on that question, and again, thank you for taking questions, Mr. Vice President. There's clearly a lot of emotion in Minnesota, across the country, over this incident. You're calling Renee Good a deranged leftist. There's been heated rhetoric that we've also heard from officials. What responsibility do you and the president have to diffuse some of the tension that we are seeing play out in Minnesota, bring down the temperature as this investigation is unfolding?
What we have a responsibility to do is to protect the people who are enforcing the law and protect the country writ large. Whether you're Democrat or Republican, you deserve to have the people's laws enforced in the United States of America. Now, again, I'm not happy that this woman lost her life. I'm not happy that this woman was there at a protest violating the law by interfering with a law enforcement action. I think that we can all recognize that the best way to turn down the temperature is to tell people to take their concerns about immigration policy to the ballot box. Stop assaulting and stop inciting violence against our law enforcement officers. That's the best way to take down the temperature. And we're not going to give in to terrorism on this. And that's exactly what's happening. People trying to antagonize, to commit acts of violence. They throw bricks at them. Sometimes they shoot at them. Sometimes they dox them. Sometimes they go to their place of residence and harass their families. This is classic terrorism. And we cannot say that when a far left fringe is inciting violence against our brave law enforcement officials, that we're no longer going to enforce the law. That's rewarding the very people who are engaged in this garbage. The actual reward that they just got is a new assistant attorney general who is going to prosecute and investigate this stuff even more aggressively than before. Yeah.
Thanks for taking my question. So the head of Minnesota's investigations agency says that the U.S. Attorney's Office has essentially cut off the state investigations agency's access to the investigation. What is the precedent for that, and why shouldn't the Minnesota officials on the ground have access and evidence to work on this investigation?
First of all, I wish the state officials in Minnesota would investigate why you have so many people who are using their vehicles and other means to actually interfere with a legitimate law enforcement operation. The precedent here is very simple. You have a federal law enforcement official engaging in federal law enforcement action. That's a federal issue. That guy is protected by absolute immunity. He was doing his job. The idea that Tim Walz and a bunch of radicals in Minneapolis are going to go after and make this guy's life miserable because he was doing the job that he was asked to do is preposterous. The unprecedented thing is the idea that a local official can actually prosecute a federal official with absolute immunity. I've never seen anything like that. It would get tossed out by a judge. So what I'd like Minnesota to focus on is the real issue, that they're encouraging people. Minneapolis officials are encouraging people to commit violence against ICE officials. It's ridiculous. It's got to stop. Go ahead.
Vice President, thank you. You said earlier that there's a left-wing network to attack, to dox, to assault, and make it impossible for ICE officers to do their job. You told my colleague just now that there's an investigation going on into that network.
Yep.
So if everything that you say is true, how does being part of that network justify being shot?
Well, being part of the network doesn't justify being shot, but ramming an ICE officer with your car, that's what justifies being shot. You force somebody to engage in self-defense, it's almost a preposterous question. I'm not saying that funding some of this stuff justifies capital punishment. Nobody would suggest that. The reason this woman is dead is because she tried to ram somebody with her car and that guy acted in self-defense. That is why she lost her life, and that is the tragedy. Now, there may be other violations of the law and other penalties that are associated with those violations of the law. For example, if you are funding violence against our law enforcement officers, I'm not a prosecutor. My guess is that's not the sort of thing that earns capital punishment, but it should sure as hell earn you a few years in prison if you're funding the effort to try to assault our law enforcement officers. What is, I'm sorry guys, what's going on here? You guys are meant to report the truth. How have you let yourself become agents of propaganda of a radical fringe that's making it harder for us to enforce our laws? You just asked me a question that presumed that the reason why this woman died is because she was engaged in legitimate protest. She tried to run somebody over with her car, and the guy defended himself when that happened.
Investigation is still ongoing.
I said next question.
Mr. Vice President, I mean, you presumably watched the video yourself. There's not the slightest doubt in your mind, having viewed it, that the victim, you still believe that she deliberately tried to ram him despite seeing this video?
Look, I don't know what is in a person's heart or in a person's head, and obviously we're not going to get the chance to ask this woman what was going on. What I am certain of is that she violated the law. What I'm certain of is that that officer had every reason to think that he was under very serious threat for injury or in fact, his life. What I'm certain of is that she accelerated in a way where she ran into the guy. I don't know what was in her heart and what was in her head, but I know that she violated the law, and I know that officer was acting in self-defense. It raises an interesting point, though. Look, if people want to say that we should have a legitimate debate about, what was she really doing, right? Was she panicking when she drove into this officer, or was she actually trying to ram him? That's a reasonable conversation. What's not reasonable is for so many of you to plaster all over the media that this was an innocent woman and that the ICE agent committed murder, which is what many of you have said explicitly and some of you have said implicitly. That's what I have an objection to. The idea that this was not justified is absurd, and I think everybody knows it in their heart. Yeah.
Mr. Vice President,
in the green jacket.
Taking down the temperature.
It seems like political violence is ratcheting up and riots could be around the corner. What steps does the administration have planned to try to unite America? Average people on both political sides are so tired of fighting with each other, and I think all the journalists in this room could agree with me that we don't want to be part of the problem. Do you have any words to unite America?
You know, I know you don't want to be a part of the problem, and I think that's true of a lot of you. I'm not sure it's true for everybody, because the reporting over this has been one of the biggest scandals I've ever seen in media. I've never seen a case so misrepresented and misreported when you have a guy who was defending himself and is now being treated as some sort of federal assassin by so many of the people in this room. First of all, let me say about crime. You mentioned violence. One of the things we're proudest about is that you saw violent crime over the last year drop by 20%. Why is that drop by 20%? Is it because we're attacking our law enforcement officers, or is it because we in the administration are empowering our law enforcement officers to enforce the law? I think that's one of the ways you take down the temperature, is you make people feel more secure and safe in their person and property. That's why we care so much about protecting our law enforcement, because it accrues to the benefit of the entire national community. I think that we can absolutely talk about the ways in which, you know, we can lower the temperature by discussing differences in a reasonable and rational way. Again, I'm happy to talk with any congressional Democrat or any of you about our immigration policy, about why I think it's necessary, about why I think it's in the best interest of the country, about why the President of the United States was elected to actually enforce the border for the first time in at least 4 years. So here's the problem. That's not the debate so many people are having. They are actively covering for people who are committing acts of violence against federal law enforcement. It is preposterous. The way to take down the temperature is to stop it. Have your debates about policy. Attack me. Attack the President of the United States. Don't attack our law enforcement officers. They are trying to do the job the American people demanded that they do. They are not policy actors. They are enforcing the law. They should be treated with a modicum of dignity and respect. And the fact that they're not is why incidents like yesterday happened. The one final point I'll make about this is, look, there's a part of me that feels very, very sad for this woman, not just because she lost her life, but because I think she is a victim of left-wing ideology. What young mother shows up and decides they're going to throw their car in front of ICE officers who are enforcing legitimate law? You've got to be a little brainwashed to get to that point to where you're willing, not just to protest, that's fine, not peacefully protest, but throw your vehicle in front of legitimate law enforcement officers and drive your car into them. To get to that point, you have to be, I think, radicalized in a very, very sad way. I certainly wish that she hadn't got there. I know there's an ICE officer right now who very much wishes he was not put in the position where he had to fire a gun to defend his own life. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. What's your message, following up on that, what's your message to the leaders in Minnesota, the governor of Minnesota, the mayor of Minneapolis, to calm down the situation on the ground, on the streets? What's your message also to those protesters who saw that video in a completely different way than you saw that video?
Well, first of all, I think if you watch every angle of that video, there is one angle where if you squint, you can maybe tell yourself that it's not clear what happened. But when you look at all angles of that video, it is very clear that her vehicle went right for the guy. She actually collided with him. And then that's, of course, when he fired his shots. That's obvious, okay? So what I'd say to the protesters is, by all means, protest peacefully, but make this about ideas. Make this about disagreement with our policy. Don't use your protest as a justification or an encouragement for people to go and incite violence and participate in violence against our law enforcement officials. To the people on the ground in Minneapolis, meaning the local officials in Minneapolis from Tim Walz on down, I'd say, look, why can't you just disagree with a given piece of immigration policy without turning law enforcement into the enemy? And think about, for example, a criminal law, where a police officer goes and arrests somebody because they violated a criminal law. If you're mad about that, go and protest the politician who passed that law. Don't attack the police officer who's just doing their job. We had a wide open border under Joe Biden. I happen to think it's a good thing the President of the United States has closed it down. If you think that's a bad idea, criticize this administration for a policy decision. Don't attack our people for enforcing the law, because I guarantee you go to ICE, There are black people and white people. There are Democrats and Republicans. They are patriotic Americans who are trying to enforce the law. Attack me, lay off of our ICE agents. Yeah, in the blue, all the way, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Vice President. You called on Tim Walz to resign. Can you lay out the case as to why he should step down?
Well, look, I think Tim Walz should resign because it's very clear either that he knew about the fraud in Minneapolis, he knew about the welfare fraud, or at the very least he looked the other way. I mean, this is not this is not like Lex Luthor, right? This is not movie villain fraud. This is the lowest IQ possible fraud. This is, we're going to take we're going to take the absence of kids and set up a daycare center where there are no children, and we're going to call our early childhood education center the Quality Learing Center. By the way, if you can't spell learning, maybe you shouldn't be in early childhood education. But people got rich off of this. We know that there were schools who either had no enrollment or at least they overstated their enrollment. Tim Walz, either it was unbelievable incompetence or he was in on the fraud. That's one of the things we're going to get to the bottom of. Sir.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Can you explain the difference between this Associate Attorney General and a special counsel? And do you envision this being a permanent position or having more of a limited scope?
Well, it's going to be permanent until we get to the bottom of what's going on, so I think it's going to last for at least the remainder of the administration. What's different about it from a special counsel is, if you remember, the Jack Smith case where the special counsel was found unconstitutional, one of the big issues there is that that person was not an appointed person, completely aside from all the other issues that the person was a lunatic and that the case had no merit. There was a fundamental constitutional issue, which is that he had not been appointed by the president and he had not been confirmed by the United States Senate. An assistant attorney general, what that's going to allow us to do is appoint this person, have them confirmed by the Senate. That's one difference. The more substantive difference is that this person is going to be part of a very broad interagency White House that's being led from the President of the United States on down. And that's going to give him the resources, the access to material and information to make this person more effective. I think a lot of people have asked, how are you really going to get to the heart of the fraud? We've been asking ourselves that question for the past couple of months, and we think this is the critical piece at the Department of Justice to really ramp this fraud investigation into high gear. In the red tie, yeah.
Vice President Vance, I wanted to ask, what's your message to far leftist agitators who feel emboldened to obstruct ICE activity in Minnesota and around the country?
Well, I think they shouldn't feel emboldened because now they have an assistant attorney general who is going to prosecute and investigate their fraud and their violence more aggressively than it has ever been investigated in the United States of America. We are doing so much to try to find the financing networks and the domestic terrorism networks that legitimate this violence, that fund this violence, and that, of course, engage in the violence. These people should not feel emboldened because they have, for the first time, maybe in American history, an administration that is not going to tolerate political violence of any kind from anywhere. Yeah.
We made clear today that the entire weight of the federal government is behind these ICE agents and this ICE agent in particular. There is still a federal investigation happening on the ground. Does that mean that they are not looking into this ICE agent at all? They are just focused on the woman who was in the car? What is the investigation if the federal government has already determined that its weight is behind this ICE investigation?
So what do you mean, when you say investigation, do you mean investigation of the shooting yesterday or of the fraud that's happening in Minneapolis?
Yesterday.
Okay, look, DHS, as I understand it, has an investigation already ongoing. I know that other organs of our government are looking at this. So yes, there's certainly an investigation that's happening right now. But as part of the broader fraud investigation, a lot of what we're doing with the Department of Justice has already started. We've got over 1,500 subpoenas. We've got people this morning, actually. We're going door to door to actually knock on some of these fraudulent care centers, these fraudulent social services organizations to get to the bottom of what's going on there. So the investigation in some ways has already been ramping up into the anti-fraud element for at least a few weeks. What we're trying to do is supercharge it and make sure there's a designated person within the Department of Justice who completely controls that particular focus.
Yeah. Just to follow up on that, Mr. Vice President, on the agent, is he still on duty or has he been placed on leave, on administrative leave? And what really was the target of the operation on Wednesday? the ICE operation on Wednesday?
Well, first of all, it was a legitimate law enforcement operation. We were going door to door to try to find criminal illegal aliens and deport them from the United States of America, because if you come to our country illegally in violation of our immigration laws, then we have the mandate, and in fact, we have the legal duty to enforce those immigration laws. Whether he's been placed on administrative leave, I don't know the answer to that question. I'd refer it to the Department of Homeland Security, and they can follow up. I will say, look, I would appreciate everybody saying a prayer for that agent. Look, in the past 6 months, he has been hit twice by a motor vehicle. One time, the first time, it led to over 30 stitches and very serious injuries to his legs. This is a guy who's actually done a very, very important job for the United States of America. He's been assaulted, he's been attacked, he's been injured because of it. He deserves a debt of gratitude, and I think the media prejudging and talking about this guy as if he's a murderer is one of the most disgraceful things I've ever seen from the American media. Yeah.
Vice President, what is your specific role in the future of Venezuela? And I'm wondering, could you confirm reports that the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, was kept out of the planning for the operations because of her past concerns about military involvement in Venezuela?
So I've heard a couple of things. One, that I was kept out of the planning for the Venezuela operation. That's false. And another, that Tulsi was kept out of the planning for Venezuela operations. That's completely false. Look, we're all part of the same team. And one of the things that is really amazing about that operation is that we kept it very tight to the senior cabinet level officials and related officials in our government. And we kept this operation secret for a very long time. I'm very proud of that. I think it suggests that the team works very well together. Well, looking ahead, what is my role? Look, my role is going to be whatever the president asks me to do.
Has he asked you to do something yet?
Well, every other day, I'm chairing the meeting that we do on this among White House principals to talk about next steps to try to ensure that Venezuela is stable, and as the president has directed us to do, to ensure that the new Venezuelan government actually listens to the United States and does what the United States needs it to do under our country's best interest. So I'm going to be as involved as the president wants me to be. So far, that's been very involved, and I'll keep on doing that so long as the president asks me to do it. In the purple.
Yes.
Even
Mr.
beyond the War Powers
Sorry,
resolution.
we'll go purple and then we'll go pink or whatever that is in front.
Royal purple. And then beige. All right.
Okay.
Are there any indications, you talked about the network, are there any indications that the lady who was shot, I know there are different reports from there, her wife said they were new to the area. Are there any indications she may have been a paid agitator, and maybe that there are others that were brought to the area, considering everything that's going on in Minneapolis?
I wouldn't say that she was paid. I don't have the evidence to say that one way or the other. What I do know is that she was violating the law. And if you just look at the eyewitness accounts, they were saying she was there to prevent the enforcement of the law. She was trying to obstruct a legitimate law enforcement operation. That much is obviously clear. The rest of it, of course, is part of the reason why we investigate this stuff. Yeah.
Mr. Vice President, even beyond the War Powers resolution today, Congress has bucked President Trump on issues like tariffs. Are you concerned that President Trump is losing his grip on Republicans in the Congress, and what are you going to do about it?
No, I'm not concerned at all. First of all, we talked to some of the senators who were going to vote the wrong way, in my view, on this resolution today. Much of their argument was based more on a legal technicality than any disagreement in policy. If you look at the people who actually voted, every single one of them have supported the administration's plan. Second of all, as the president, I believe himself, has already said, every president, Democrat or Republican, believes the War Powers Act is fundamentally a fake and unconstitutional law. It's not going to change anything about how we conduct foreign policy over the next couple of weeks, the next couple of months, and that'll continue to be how we approach things. Go ahead.
President. So we are seeing, regarding Iran, we are seeing the protests in Iran these days. The cities are begging for help from the U.S. and Israel, naming streets in the city after President Trump. It seems there is an opportunity here that may not come again. Will the United States stand by the citizens of Iran? And if Israel decides to strike again the nuclear sites in Iran, is the U.S. expected to take part?
Well, look, we certainly stand by anybody who's engaged in peaceful protest, anybody who's trying to exert their rights for free association and to have their voices heard. Obviously, the Iranian regime has a lot of problems. And as the President of the United States has said, the smartest thing for them to have done, it was true 2 months ago, it's true today, is for them to actually have a real negotiation with the United States about what we need to see when it comes to their nuclear program. I'll let the President speak to what we're going to do in the future, but we certainly stand with anybody across the world, including the Iranian people who are advocating for their rights. I'll take just a couple more questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice President. Concerning Venezuela, how would you assure the Caribbean region that they will remain a zone of peace? Because some member states in the region are concerned.
Well, look, the president had a very productive phone call with the president of Colombia yesterday, and we continue to talk at all levels of government with a number of our friends in the Caribbean region. I actually think this is really good for peace in the Caribbean, because when you take away a major source of illegal cartel revenue, which is the cocaine trade, the fentanyl trade, other sources of illicit revenue, you actually remove the power of one of the main destabilizing forces in Latin America and in the Caribbean. I really do think, look, we say it all the time, this is the president of peace. One of the ways that you establish peace in your own hemisphere is to make it clear that the United States is going to be respected, that the United States is willing to take power away from criminal cartel organizations and give it to legitimate governments. That's how we see the future of the Western Hemisphere, and we think it's going to be much more peaceful than it was certainly under Joe Biden. I'll take one more question. Go ahead.
Mr. Vice President, thank you. On Greenland, do you have a message for European leaders? Many in Europe reject the idea that the island could be for sale.
Well, first of all, Secretary Rubio, I believe, is meeting with the leaders of Denmark and Greenland next week, I want to say it is, but maybe it's the week after that. We'll continue to deliver some of these messages in private, some of them in public, but I guess my advice to European leaders and anybody else would be to take the President of the United States seriously. What has he said about Greenland? Set to the side the crazy overreactions that I've seen from the press and from certain people in Europe. What has the President said? Number one, Greenland is really important, not just to America's missile defense, but to the world's missile defense. Number two, we know that there are hostile adversaries that have shown a lot of interest in that particular territory, that particular slice of the world. So what we're asking our European friends to do is to take the security of that landmass more seriously, because if they're not, the United States is going to have to do something about it. What that is, I'll leave that to the president as we continue to engage in diplomacy with our European friends and everybody on this particular topic. And again, thank you all for listening. Thanks for taking questions. And I just ask you, look, this is politics, and often Republicans and get in arguments with the press about things, and I understand that. I think it's really irresponsible for you guys to go out there and imply or tell the American people that a guy who defended himself from being rammed by an automobile is guilty of murder. Be a little bit more careful. We're going to talk about toning down the temperature, which I know the president wants to do, and I certainly want to do. One of the ways we tone down the temperature is to have a media that tells the truth. I encourage you all to do that. God bless you. Happy New Year, guys.
Oh, I was waiting for Karoline to come back up. I guess she's not coming back. Yeah, they cut it. That's going to be the end of it. I thought Karoline was gonna jump in there. Wow, he had a lot to say. He didn't take not even a little bit of crap from the media to make sure that they understood where everybody stood. Just to let you guys know, a surprise for you at 2:30, so in 25 minutes or so, Monica Page, obviously, who was in that press room, she will be here. We'll be talking to Monica and getting her response to everything that was said. That was just simply amazing. I love seeing what he had to say, and I'm going to be right back in 90 seconds.
Back to Fanfare with Barry Cunningham.
Oh, I'm going through my feeds and everything, and I'm looking at something. I'm not gonna punish you too much, but you gotta we gotta do like maybe 5 to 10 minutes of this. This is the nuts, the radicals, the insane are having their own press conference. There's no political leaders. This is just the nuts. So pay attention to what they look like. Pay attention to, I just can't. Oh my goodness, this just 5 minutes. Just indulge me because I just got to hear this.
Neighborhoods and kidnapping our immigrant neighbors with a much higher intensity than before. This was the moment that spontaneous rapid response networks and those organized by MIRAC, Immigrant Defense Network, and Monarca kicked into high gear. The people participating in these networks have been heroic. We should keep up the effort, but also remember to remain as united as possible by following the St. Paul principles and put the impacted immigrants' needs first. I want to take a moment to recognize that it is a scary time. Our neighbors are being kidnapped off the streets as we speak. However, the response to this should not be isolating ourselves, but leaning even more on our community. Yesterday, a 37-year-old constitutional observer, Renee Nicole Good, was shot and killed by ICE agents while driving away when they were conducting a raid in South Minneapolis. In the wake of Renee's murder, 10,000 people showed up on Portland Avenue to express their grief and commitment to stand up for their immigrant neighbors. This is in addition to the vigils and protests that have erupted across the country, many of which were organized by the chapters of the Legalization for All network. Rest in peace, Renee Nicole Good. Thank you for standing up for our immigrant neighbors. We absolutely have the numbers. The more we show up for each other, the safer all of us will be. So get trained, get organized, and show up for each other. Who keeps us safe?
We keep us safe.
That's right. It's not the police nor Walz's National Guard, but ultimately us, the community, that keeps us safe. This is illustrated by the recent passage of a stronger sanctuary city ordinance in Minneapolis, which was only possible through the grassroots efforts of MIRAC and immigrant rights allies. To maintain our momentum, please join us at the rally and march this Saturday at 1 p.m. at the northwest corner of Powderhorn Park, where we'll celebrate our victory and hold our Minneapolis leaders accountable to the stronger separation ordinance. When immigrant rights are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back!
Damn right. Thank you all.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jay Yates with the Twin Cities Coalition for Justice.
My name is Jay. I'm with the Twin Cities Coalition for Justice, a Black and queer-led organization.
I knew it. I saw him walk up there, and I'm like, yeah, don't say it, Barry. And then he said it.
And political repression, and the People's Action Coalition against Trump. First, I want to say that on behalf of everyone in TCC for Jay, I offer my sincerest condolences to Renee Good's wife, children, and remaining family. She represents the core of what makes us human, the instinct to stand up for her neighbors and offer everything she could in the name of justice. She was killed because she knew what ICE is doing to our immigrant communities is wrong and had joined thousands of people exercising their legal right to film and observe law enforcement. We will never forget her or her sacrifice. But we must also not forget that her death is not the first murder ICE has on its hands. 32 people have died in ICE custody just in 2025, and 2/3 of the 1,800 detainees held at the Alligator Alcatraz concentration camp are still missing. Keith Porter, a Black California resident, was murdered by an off-duty ICE agent on New Year's Eve, less than a week prior to them killing Renee. His murder, too, was justified by a false narrative pushed by DHS that the officer who killed him feared for his life, a narrative contradicted by eyewitnesses. Miramar Martinez, who also was legally observing ICE in Chicago, was shot 5 times by ICE agent Charles Exum, who bragged that he'd fired 5 rounds and she had 7 holes. Put that in your book, boys. Miramar luckily survived and defeated her charges of...
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't want to torture you too much. I said like 5 or 10 minutes because I can't take much more of that. This is just... I was turning off the other feed and this one happened to be there. I'm like, what the hell are these people doing? If anything, you have to understand, as you were looking at these people, they're not from here. I don't know where they're from. I don't know who they are, but they weren't around when I was growing up. Our entire educational system has been destroyed by these nuts. And I'm telling you right now, from my heart, I'm telling you with everything I have, A, we are already in a civil war. And B, these people are never coming back. They're lost forever. We can pray for their souls. Maybe we can hope that they find the Lord or something before they pass. But they're never going to be part of our society. These people are done for. They are absolutely toast. I don't know if it was their parents. I don't know if something happened to them. But they have completely detached from any reality, any society. Those of you guys who are watching right now, you may be driving, you may be retired. These are 20-something and 30-somethings. It is the middle of the day. It is 2:15 on a Thursday. They don't got any jobs. If you want to start looking for fraud, I would say start getting the IDs of these people and find out what kind of sustenance they have. How in the hell are they always out in the middle of the frickin' day? They're obviously not independently wealthy. They're not working. How are they even existing? To just sit there and hold up stupid signs and look a certain way with and they're getting press. There's actually network coverage of this thing where they're standing there. It's a hard pill to swallow, even with Robin sometimes. She's like, we got to pray for him. Honey, we just can't give up on him. I'm like, how many times I got to pray for these people? I mean, I don't know. You guys have the answer? Do we just include them all the time? But they're done. They're gone. The next one. Oh, we got to show this one. Oh, look at this one. Who's this? Oh, this must be the ringleader.
A doctor, the vice president of the teacher chapter of the Minneapolis Federation of Educators.
Good afternoon. My name is Natasha Doctor, and I am the Vice President of the Minneapolis Federation of Educators, and we are proud.
How many of these organizations are there? I'm the Vice President and the Grand Poobah of the American Federation of Minneapolis Nut Jobs. We have a 501c3 that George Soros or somebody keeps paying us. Maybe that's the loophole. Maybe each and every one of them has a 501c3, and then they dole out all the money so these people can buy shreds of clothing and ramen. The only reason I show this is because it's not often you get to see these people and what they're actually thinking, which it's insanity.
Is not welcome in our city. And as educators and union members, we continue to demand that ICE leave our city. Our students and families deserve to be able to safely exercise their constitutional right to a public education. We keep us safe.
All right, our next speaker is Andrew Josephchek with the Minnesota Anti-War Committee.
My name is Andrew Josephchek, AndrewJosephchak. I'm a member of the Minnesota Anti-War Committee, which is a member of the People's Action Coalition against Trump. I've been to 2 emergency protests in the last week, one in response to the Trump administration's criminal bombing of Venezuela's capital and the illegal kidnapping of President Nicolas Maduro. The second in response to ICE's summary execution of Renee Good in South Minneapolis yesterday. While there may not seem to be an immediate causal connection between the 2 events, they in fact are connected because they are both reflections of one and the same policy. U.S.
Okay, I'm done. Oh, so it's Venezuela. It's one just big, we hate everything. We hate it all. We hate that he's doing anything with Venezuela. We hate Greenland. We hate Gaza. We hate this entire Republican world. Okay, sir, I get that. I gather there's nothing you want that's Republican. What exactly is it that you want? What kind of life is it that you would like to live? Nobody ever asked you that? Do you not have an idea on what is that you'd like to see happen? I'd love to interview somebody like that. Hey, I understand your policy. Trump sucks. Orange man, really, really freaking bad. JD Vance, hillbilly, yeah, whatever. Forget that. I got it. That's inherent. That's a prerequisite. I know that now talking to you, that you hate all of this. Got it. What do you want? And I bet you if somebody asked these people that question, they couldn't answer it. Or actually, maybe the answer would be, we want everything that you have, but we don't want to do any of the things that you had to do to get it. I.e., I want free housing. I'll live in the pod. I'll eat the bugs. I'll do all that as long as I don't have to work. You can actually look at these people and realize there is nothing intrinsically positive about their lives. Nothing. You know, Ashley used to be a school teacher, and I'm sure some of you are school teachers, and you're probably saying to yourself, how did these kids get failed? Because there is no ambition. There's no drive. They don't even want to look nice. I mean, I'm not saying I'm the most sartorially advanced person in the world, and Robin would definitely underscore that. And she will tell me, nope, you're not wearing that to the restaurant. But why not, honey? Not with me. If you're going by yourself, wear what you want. You can either go back in there and change. And she laughs at me all the time because I have 2 huge closets. 2 huge closets of clothes, nice clothes. I probably spend my time in like this much of the closet. There's a couple t-shirts, a couple shorts, and that's pretty much it. So, I mean, at least I get newer stuff than these people, but I understand choices. Again, my choice is I'm in South Florida. It's freaking hot. I want to put on a t-shirt, a polo, and some sneakers, and I'm good for the day. But we're going to a nice restaurant. I remember the first time I went to one of the restaurants once we moved into South Florida, and we could go to one of the nicer restaurants. And she made me put on a button-down shirt, take off the hat, comb your hair, whichever hair is left, put on a nice pair of shoes. Oh, wait a minute, I don't have any. We're going to take you to the store. We're going to buy you a nice pair of shoes, and then nice pair of pants and go. And I'm like, all right, I'm dressed. What I do, I get in there and see people with hats and flip-flops and, polos in a really white table restaurant. These people,
Today, we are here to speak. Well, first of all, my name is Alyssa Washington. I'm the founder of the Wrongfully Incarcerated and Over-Sentenced Families Council, Minnesota. You spell my name ALISSAWASHINGTON. So today we are here to speak truth, and we will not whisper it. We are here to condemn the actions of U.S. immigration and customs enforcement agents and all those who are terrorizing our communities under false banner of law and order. What they are doing is not safety. It is.
I think we just stumbled upon something. In our little bit of humor here while we're waiting for Monica to show up, I think we have stumbled upon something. If you notice, every single one of these people, every single one thus far, hi, I'm Fred Jones, I'm Sheila Williams, and I'm from the AFC Roaches Have Rights organization.com. That's how they're making money. That's what they're afraid of, in addition to the other stuff. They're all in on it. Not just some, all of them. That's why I played the meme from The Professional. Bring me everybody. Who? Everyone. Every single one of these people thus far is... Hi, I'm Fred from XYZ organization. XYZ organization probably has a checking account that's being funded by some other nut-wing organization. That's what's going on. Guarantee you. Now with J.D. Vance saying they're going to have another special, not a special counsel, but this new assistant attorney general, that's what we're going to find out. These people are all freaking out because the money train doesn't stop with the Somalis. The money train is the entirety of the Democrats in Minnesota. They have a complete fraud state. I bet you're going to find it in California. I bet you're going to find it in New York. They're making themselves known. We can see who they are right now. So now we know this is who they are. This is what they're all about. It is a giant fraud. It makes complete sense now. These people don't work. They don't do anything, yet they have the ability to go out there and protest whenever they need to be. They need to be able to go wherever they need to go to. One of the things they're not talking about is the woman that got killed was from Colorado. And she had Missouri plates. I don't know if it was a rental, who knows? And even on her bio, she says experiencing Minnesota right now. That's a lot of movement for a young woman with a child. What was she doing? How is she living? Oh, you're probably paying for it. That's right. That's right. She's a young woman in the Minnesota area with a child, which means you were probably paying all her bills as well. Absolutely insane. A couple of videos popped up. I can get these in before Monica comes on. I started to show you, let me go back and show you this. I'll cut it real quick.
Be clear that these schools are being closed, in Minneapolis out of incredible, precaution and concern for the safety of students.
And so what I started to tell you was the schools are not closed because of the safety of the students. The schools are closed right now because they're terrified that mommy and daddy of the little kids there are not from here, and they would basically be camped out in front of the school waiting for the parents to come pick these kids up and then put them away. That's why they're afraid. They know who's, because I thought to myself, why would the schools be closed? Why would the kids at, kindergarten be worried about what's happening over there? They're not threatened. Oh, then it dawned on me, mommy and daddy who get the free schooling because they're in Minnesota, even if they're not from here, they got to pick up little Johnny or Jose. No, not Jose. It would be more like Ahmed. Got to pick them up. And when ICE sees them show up, they might go ahead and arrest them. That's what it is. Now, understand, that woman is the lieutenant governor of the state of Minnesota. I found that another video she had posted. This one's absolutely frightening.
Our neighbors are being disappeared. P.S. Without due process, it is just called kidnapping. Then show up and use your voice. Put your body on the line.
Put your body on the line. She just told people watching her, the lieutenant governor of Minnesota said to put your body on the line. Nah, I'm not in this fight. That's that fight that they keep talking about. And then I got this little one here I heard from Tim Walz.
Our history. When things looked really bleak, it was Minnesota's first that held that line for the nation on that July 3rd, 1863. And I think now we may be in that moment that
1863. What happened in 1863? Oh, the Civil War. And he just said, I think we might be in that moment. I think you guys understand where we are right now. I think you understand how serious this is and how bad it can get. All right, looks like Monica is here, so let's go ahead and talk to Monica. As you guys know, Monica is with TP USA, and she's also a reporter in the White House. Monica, can you hear me?
Hi, Barry. Great to be with you guys.
How you doing?
I'm great. We just came out of a very, very interesting briefing here at the White House. And honestly, the weather's pretty mild, so I can't say it's too bad.
I forget, last time we talked, didn't you say you were expecting, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Now we're at like 6.5, 7 months now, which is crazy.
Everything going okay?
Everything's great. Happy and healthy.
So it's spreading in the White House press room. You got Karoline Leavitt, Monica, you guys, it's fantastic. How long are you going to keep going? You going to try to go all the way through?
Oh yeah, I as much as I can, really. I mean, I have a really great thing going with Turning Point, and they've been just so incredibly good to me. So
Good.
as long as I can go, I'll do it.
All right, praying for you, wishing you well. Got a whole bunch of questions from this press conference. I don't know if we have time to get through them all. The first one I had is, what is the press thinking? What is the mood in that room? Especially, I had it written down before he came out and gave the big spanking he did. You know, how do these people feel about what he just said? It's crazy.
It's so interesting because you go into this press briefing room and it's always packed. I mean, this was the most packed that I've seen it, more than yesterday, I will also say. But it's like you come in there, you have questions prepped, and then you hear some of the questions that your fellow colleagues have, and you're kind of left like, am I in the Twilight Zone or something? Like, are these people seeing a totally different reality from what I'm seeing? This ICE officer rightfully defended himself against a woman who was trying to hit him with her car. And we also learned that this ICE agent has also been run over another time and has also been really just put through the ringer. So, I mean, if this was my past personally with, protesters and being put in the way of any sort of violence, I probably would have done the same exact thing. So it is so interesting to feel the mood on the ground. It kind of frustrates me because it's like you're not real people. These people aren't getting it. They're not grasping, the reality. And the reality is this man's life was in danger. So he did what he thought was the right thing, which was to defend himself.
Is it that they don't grasp it, or is it that they're being told to ask certain questions? Are there higher ups? I know, don't want to get you in trouble with the group, but do you think that's how they truly feel, or are they being influenced and being told this is what you need to cover?
Well, I do think that there is a bit of influence from the higher ups at their market, at their network, who, push them to kind of ask these certain questions or push a narrative in their reporting, like that CNN headline that J.D. Vance said mentioned in the press briefing this afternoon. I think that doesn't come directly from the reporter. I think that there is some kind of influence up above, that they have a market and they have a target audience, they have a demographic that they want to appeal to, and this is what they have to do. It sows division. I think it's dangerous, and quite honestly, it's frustrating to see that, especially as somebody who wants to bring the truth to the American people. And then you have J.D. Vance, being in there reprimanding and scolding the press. It's like, do not rope me into that. I am not part of that. I want to bring God's honest truth to the American people. And it's just really disheartening. But I do think it's a mix. It comes from the reporter, and it definitely comes from above.
One of the things he said that I caught, and I noticed some other people in chat caught, is he's talking about this new secret director, assistant attorney general, and he mentioned actually looking into the media as well. What kind of response did that get? I mean, I could imagine people in the room probably looked around when they heard that.
Well, it will be interesting to see what comes of that, of course. And we're definitely waiting with anticipation to see who that pick will be. But I think it's important because when the American people are putting their trust into you and you are blatantly lying to them about the facts of what had happened, I think you're complicit in the violence and you're complicit in what we're seeing on the ground as far as, the radical left-wing ideology. And it's completely dangerous. And the media plays a big role. The media is part of the propaganda. The media is trying to brainwash and influence the American people that the reality that you're seeing is not real. We saw that under the last administration as well, especially when it came to inflation in the southern border. And now we're seeing it again with this kind of violence. So I think that there's something that needs to be done. And I'm very happy this administration is holding everybody accountable, not just those in Minneapolis, but also those among the press.
You mentioned the reality doesn't match what they report, and obviously you see on X isn't real life. After, every job I ever had, there were people that I work with that, I'd go out to happy hour or we meet out otherwise for at a sporting event. Do you guys have any sort of life outside of work where you get together? And if so, do you see the ideology change, or is it completely separate once you guys leave that room?
It's so that I love this question because there are members of the press that I do not agree with their reporting. I do not agree with their ideology when it comes to, what we just saw in today's press briefing. But they're very, very friendly to me. I've never had a bad experience with them. I don't think I spend my free time hanging out with them outside of work. But I will say that they are kind to me. They ask about how we're doing. So I'm not going to be disrespectful to them, in that sense. But will I be disrespectful about their work and that I don't agree with it? I mean, yeah, I will say something on social media that I don't agree with it. But, I don't know it because it could totally be a front that they put on in that briefing room, and then they can go home and tune into Fox News and actually, I'm going to bring up an example to you. The White House, the president of the WHCA, the White House Correspondents Association, she actually came up to me and apologized about what happened to Charlie Kirk, and she said it was absolutely horrible what had happened. And I just didn't really expect her to say that to me because she's a member of ABC News, and I can pretty much, based on her questions that she asked Karoline Leavitt in the briefing room, I can expect her to not agree with Turning Point USA as a whole. And she also expressed some discontent for the new Attorney General of Virginia, Jay Jones, after his threatening messages about Republicans. So that kind of gave me a little bit of glimmer of hope, but it's not to say, that she probably voted for him or she probably voted for, so I don't really know. But there is like a solid mix, I think, of ideology and personal beliefs.
Not going to mention any names, but there are some high-profile people in that room who are probably making some very, very good money, and they're supporting an ideology which pretends to want to be against capitalism, while they themselves are making great money buying houses down here in Florida. How do they balance that? I mean, it seems like it's so hypocritical. I know one of the women that I'm not going to mention her name, who's in that room, who's got a very nice townhouse down here, and at the same time goes on television at night and pretends like she's not for capitalism.
Oh, I totally believe it. I think that, this is something that's among the entire press corps. They've got beautiful homes, they got beautiful families, they live in the best neighborhoods, So they're kind of like those not in my backyard type of people where, when the illegal aliens start coming in, they're like, oh, I wouldn't want to take them in. Oh, why not? You're for, this kind of immigration. You want to let everybody in, no borders. So why don't you let them into your backyard and your communities and see how you like it? Oh, no, I can't. That's exactly what we deal with on a daily basis where, we got people like us who are, really fighting the good fight. And then you've got people like them who just turn the blind eye to what's going on and will continue to report on what they're doing. And honestly, they will never give President Trump the benefit of what he's actually doing. He's keeping their communities safe. He's allowing the market to be what it is so they can buy their beautiful home.
Yeah.
And the Republican policies of Florida allow these, top tier reporters to be living there without any fear, of course, but they'll never acknowledge it.
And they come down here and they enjoy the stuff that they fight against. No taxes,
Right.
no income. I'm like, wait a second. You moved here because of all the things we enjoy. And then I'll turn on a TV and I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. I know where you live. And it's crazy. Some of the other things he mentioned today. Do they really believe that the ICE officer, quote, murdered the woman?
These reporters, there are probably some in there that absolutely believe that this was a murder. And you can still feel bad for what had happened to that woman. But at the same time, this was an act of self-defense. And for some reason, the media just refuses to grasp this concept. Me personally, Barry, I will not be mourning this woman because I see what they did to Charlie Kirk and they celebrated it. So, I'm just going to leave that at that. But there are people in there who truly believe, and I've heard it in some of the questions this afternoon by some of the reporters, that they really truly believe that this was a one-sided, ICE officer, raging, violent man killing this innocent woman in her car who had 3 kids, left the 3 kids at home for whatever reason, just to be there within her car. What a mother that is. So that I truly believe that the media does believe that. There are members in there that do.
So when he's talking about the Somali fraud that this guy is going to be or woman is going to be investigating, we've all seen the evidence, not evidence, but the reports on it, Nick Shirley's video and things of that nature. It made me wonder when I saw something that CBS said, and CBS said that the Quality Learing Center has now shut down completely because Nick Shirley targeted them. Why is it that, when I grew up, it seemed as though, what was it called, mud shoe or whatever? Why aren't reporters actually doing reporting anymore?
It's a great question. And I'm very happy to see journalists like Nick Shirley influence others. Like, I believe there's another one. Her name is Mehek Cook. She's been going all around her state of Ohio as well. I know we have our Jonathan Cho, who's been going around to Seattle as well, and Portland specifically, where he's usually stationed out of, and reporting on what's happening as far as the fraud goes. And then I saw a statement put out by one of the CBS anchors who said, from now on, we are not going to be, spewing the information that our donators want us to be talking about, or that the higher ups want us to be talking about. And it's like, you just admitted that you have basically been doing this for years. And now you want to change your reporting just because Nick Shirley is exposing everything. It's very, very hypocritical. I don't know why a lot of reporters aren't taking action. And it's so interesting to hear the wording, targeting these centers. He wasn't targeting anything. He was exposing what's happening. So the Minnesota people, the residents there, will understand where their taxpayer dollars are being wasted away at. And I'm very excited to see what else happens in the state of Minnesota, as well as those PPP loans as well, which I know that Kelly Loeffler, she's the small business administrator, she was talking about earlier this week, how they're going after that as well. There's a lot of fraud happening in Minnesota, and I think this is just the tip of the iceberg.
And do they not remember, or don't want to remember, that although Maduro was captured by President Trump, Joe Biden had a $25 million bounty back then.
Yes.
So anybody could have, if you had the wherewithal to get into Venezuela, anybody could have tried to collect that $25 million. My question at this point would be to a reporter: what would have happened if somebody did do that? What if some paramilitary outfit decided they were going to jump in there and grab Maduro and bring him back here? How come they're not talking about that?
This just goes to show that anything that President Trump does, it is bad to the Democrats, even if it's a good thing to Democrats that this has happened. I mean, you saw the bounty over Maduro's head, and President Trump did what Democrats kind of wanted to do, but Trump did it, and now everyone's upset that he did it. I was at a protest this past week, Barry. I was at the Hands Off Venezuela protest at the Trump Kennedy Center this past week, because there was the GOP retreat that was taking place there earlier this week, and President Trump spoke there. But the protesters showed up, and they were waving communist flags. They had 8647 flags. They were basically calling for the release of Maduro. They truly believe that Maduro is a good leader, and that no blood for U.S. oil, and it's completely backwards. This is what the Democrat Party is. They're so far gone.
Jeez. So I'm going to switch gears because I know you're outside. It's cold, and I know you had a certain amount of time. We just saw the big event for Turning Point, and the stage turned almost into somewhat of a carnival. Do you have, without naming names and stuff, in your mind, what's going on? Why are there so many people who think they know what's best for MAGA and taking shots at other people who think they know what's best for MAGA? Why aren't people unified on our side?
It's so disheartening to see that because I took a good amount of time off of X, off of that specific platform, because everybody was going at each other. And it just seemed like my entire algorithm was just certain influencers, certain, pundits or figureheads, podcasters, just going after each other one by one. And it's really disappointing because I think that we can unite together against one common enemy, which is radical leftism and violence and extremism. But unfortunately, that's not the case. And, we're seeing that. And we're still seeing that to this day, even weeks after AmFest. When you have a bunch of people who think very passionately about a specific topic or about how a specific thing went down, everyone suddenly turns into a criminal investigator. Everyone seemingly becomes an expert on murder and investigative topics. It can get very, very messy, and it can get very, I don't know, the tensions were heightened, and they're still heightened among us, unfortunately. And I don't know what it's going to take to bring people together. I don't know if it's going to take, what we're seeing in Minneapolis. I don't know if it's going to take another tragedy, unfortunately. But I'm hoping that we can come together and kind of unite again. Just remember, at the end of the day, we're fighting a fight that we can all get behind. And unfortunately, Charlie was seemingly the glue that kept us together. What's it going to take to kind of bring us back together? And that's kind of like, what the mood is right now.
I saw you did an interview with Kelly Loeffler, and you've been getting interviews with some good people. What do you have coming up next?
Well, fingers crossed, we're going to get Dr. Marty Makary. He's the FDA commissioner. I'd love to talk to him about the recent changes to the childhood vaccine schedule as well, and also the dietary guidelines. I'd love to talk to him about that. Of course, an interview with the vice president is always kind of looming in the background and perhaps in the works. I'm hoping that could happen. We just had Harmeet Dillon. She's Assistant Attorney General for the Civil Rights Division. She was fantastic. We're really looking to get to the bottom of Antifa, though. I think that's a goal that we have collectively at Frontlines Turning Point USA, interviewing and talking to people within the administration. What's happening with Antifa? How are we going to get to the bottom of this? What kind of investigations are we going to be looking at? And we have another major media row opportunity happening in a couple of weeks here at the White House. So hopefully we'll get to speak to even more heads of the government here and some figureheads here. So it'd be very, very exciting.
Awesome. You just brought up something. With what we've been seeing in Minnesota, unless they've taken off the black clothing, is Antifa involved in that, do you think, or they just decided to skip Minnesota?
Absolutely. We're seeing reports that there were members of Antifa looking into flying into Minnesota, that members there from across the country are there right now in Minnesota. That was one of my questions that I had for the vice president this afternoon was, what kind of preventative measures are we going to put in place so that we don't see these 2020 era protests and riots that we saw happen again? What can we do to stop this? But I think this is something that we're hoping it happens very quickly within this new year. We can get more answers in this new year. But there is a huge follow the money train. There's a bunch of different organizations funded by a bunch of other different organizations, and we're got to be looking into it.
Last question for you. You talked about the mood inside the press room. Are people worried? Are they anticipating President Trump invoking the Insurrection Act? What are you hearing about that?
That was definitely a question that I also had for the vice president. I kind of wanted to bait him with the previous question so he can say, we're looking at maybe all options on the table, including the Insurrection Act. I think it is very, very much time to implement the Insurrection Act. I think enough is enough. I think we've gotten, because it's only going to get worse. These rioters have been impeding and attacking our federal authorities for months now, and it really doesn't seem like it's going to get any better. If anything, I think it's going to get worse. So, if I were the president, I would do it.
Me too. Well, Monica, stay healthy, go inside, get warm, and we'll be looking for your next interview and checking out your post. Thank you very much for taking the time. And please stay healthy and stay safe around these nut jobs up there. Thank you
Will
very
do,
much.
Barry.
All
Thank
right.
you so much. Happy New Year. God bless you guys.
Happy New Year to you as well.
Welcome back to Fanfare with Barry Cunningham.
Because yesterday at Roosevelt High School, right, there are images that are coming out of ICE agents being on property using chemical agents with students present. That's outrageous. And again, I come back to the presence of ICE agents making everyone less safe. Now Renee Good has lost her life, has been killed by an ICE agent. So what you are hearing from Minnesotans, and I will say this myself loud and clear, ICE, it is time to get out of Minnesota and to go home. You are making all of us less safe and putting us in danger.
One of the things, I'm going to close with right now, and I got a couple things to tell you, but one of the things that gets me is when I keep hearing these nuts, and that woman again was the lieutenant governor of Minnesota. How is ICE making, quote, all of us unsafe? You know, the immutable laws of physics say a body at rest stays at rest. This microphone in front of me is just going to sit there unless I decide to push it away. This phone will stay in my hands unless I put it down or toss it across the room. ICE and soldiers, ICE law enforcement agencies, how are they going to make you feel less safe? How are they going to make you less safe? They're standing there. They're not looking at you. Their job, the very reason they are there is to find the bad guys. The very reason they are in Minnesota is to find the people who aren't supposed to be in this country. If you aren't a newcomer, what fear and how would you feel less safe? I would drive by them. Hey, Rob, look, there's some ICE guys over there. They're about to do something in that building. Yeah, how do you feel? Oh, fine. You want to go get dinner? Again, that psychological mind effing that they're doing to people, telling people they're going to feel less safe. And you can prove that that's a lie, because if you felt less safe, that woman wouldn't have tried to run over one of the ICE agents. You would have said, hands up, I'll open the door. So how can you keep telling me you feel less safe when I can turn on the TV and see you throwing snowballs and bricks and everything else? I know pretty well. I remember when I grew up, there were a couple houses, I crossed the street because they had a big giant dog. And the big dog would sit on the porch and kind of look at you like, don't make me come after this porch, I'll tear you a new one. And so we would just cross the street, because if we came too close to that where that dog was, it would make you feel less safe because he was going to tear you a new butt up. The fact of the matter is what these people have done is they've learned how to use language to completely brainwash a legion of idiots. There's no less safe. In fact, I'd feel more safe. I've told you the story after October 7th. We lived next to a synagogue, and I came home, and there were guys there with automatic weapons and camouflage and Humvees all around the synagogue. So tell me something. If people in uniforms with submachine guns make you feel less safe, how come families who lived in the community were completely happy that those guys were there? How come little girls on scooters and what do you call those things, skateboards, were going into the synagogue, smiles with their nice dresses and mommy and daddy behind them, smiling, waving at the soldiers? If the presence of somebody in military makes you feel fearful, it's not because of them. It's because of you. You have something in your mind that you don't want them to know about. You're worried that they may act on something. When Robin and I went to Rome, and it was very interesting. If you guys ever been to Rome or any other European, area, we get out of the Airbnb or Verbo, whatever it was, and we wanted to go over there to see the Vatican, and we wanted to go over here, and they're like, hey, just take the, whatever they call it, the subway. And when you go down into the subway, the policia are standing around with submachine guns. I didn't feel fearful. I was like, damn, this is pretty good. Ain't nothing happening down here. Obviously, that was a few years ago, and I can still remember it. I talk to Robin all the time. Did you feel fear? Nope, didn't feel fearful at all. When we went to lunch after leaving the Vatican, and there was a street festival or something, and these guys are walking around with submachine guns. Did I feel fearful? Nope, not at all. If I was in Minnesota and I saw ICE doing something, would I feel fearful? Nope, not at all. They're brainwashing people, and the media is allowing people to be brainwashed. That is something that is why these people are the way they are. They have soaked this all in, and they can't extricate themselves from it. Not at all. I posted something on X as I want to close. I wanted to show you guys this because it keeps coming to the forefront, and I'd like you guys to take a look at it because it's very important in terms of looking at where these people come from, where their mindset is. And there's certain terms, I've used here on the show, but I want to show this to you. And where is it? Come on, I'm scrolling. I posted a lot today. All right, here it is. I want to show this to you. If you don't know what confirmation bias is, I need you to look it up so you understand. Confirmation bias is basically if you believe that XYZ is why things are happening, then anybody that tells you something was caused by XYZ, you will believe it. It confirms your bias. It doesn't allow you to have other facts. Before I started doing the Trump stuff, many of you know I used to cover the Miami Dolphins. This was two and a half, 3 years ago. And 2.5, 3 years ago, because of my football knowledge, I went, he sucks and he's a bad coach. This team will never go anywhere unless this or this or this are removed. And they came after me. With pitchforks and flames, torches. How dare you? Everything about this team is great. How dare you speak against them? I'm just looking. They're confirmation bias because they would beat some team that's otherwise sucked, wouldn't allow them to see what I was seeing. And so I posted this, and what I'm saying is people will see what they want to see. I posted that. And I ask people, what is it that you see here? Do you see an apple? Do you see, I don't know, a butterfly? Do you see a man and a woman? What we see is dependent upon what we believe. If you're hungry, maybe you see a half-eaten apple. It depends on what you believe. And so I posted here and said, confirmation bias is why the Democrats lie incredibly well. They've learned it. They've taken it to an art form. Their entire game, the entire political strategy is built on deception and illusion. The ICE agents make us fearful. No, they don't. The military guys in Washington, they don't make you fearful. They're not sowing chaos. Chaos is the idiots running around the street throwing stuff. That's chaos. I'm just standing here. They rely on extreme confirmation bias. Libtards will see and believe what they are told. That's why the lies yesterday were immediate and ongoing. They knew that people might see the real video. Didn't matter. They had to get out right immediately and say, person was murdered, the ICE agent did it, she was an innocent woman, just standing by, she's a loving mother, everything is fine. And if it weren't for Elon Musk, they would get away with it today. You see, they've relied on confirmation bias so much that they don't understand how other people aren't seeing it anymore. We're not playing with the Rorschach test that they're playing with, because we can actually find this angle and this angle and that angle. I'm telling you, if Elon Musk hadn't bought Twitter, we wouldn't have seen those videos. If Elon Musk hadn't bought Twitter, we wouldn't have seen Nick Shirley's exposés. Blip, they would have been gone. And if you tried to post it, you'd have been gone. So they can only exist at this point based upon the people who won't look anywhere else. I'm only going to look here. I want to look at what the Krassensteins are saying. I want to look at what the leftards are saying, and Joy Reid and MSN Now. I only want to look here because they are going to give me the information that I believe. I believe that ICE is bad. I believe that they're Nazis and fascists and everything else. So I'm only going to look for the stuff that supports that. And the Democrats know this. They absolutely know that there are no people with free-thinking minds on their side. There's no other way that AOC could have said, I was going to get raped and killed on January 6th, and she wasn't even in the building. They count on people being deceived. And what I need you people to do, is to not go there. Look, research, look at everything. I mean, they're out there on the street right now. Obviously no jobs. I guess they're, 501c3s are paying them, but they see what they want to see. And there's no way you're going to turn their heads. You're just a maggot. You're in a cult because you think for yourself. I can tell you personally, being a black guy that supported President Trump, I can't tell you how many times people say you're turning on your own people and all that kind of stuff, merely because I'd be like, well, what about this? And so that's going to happen right now. The entire thing with the Somali fraud, as they're digging in, the people who don't want to believe it aren't going to believe it. No evidence. There's nothing happening in Somaliland. Somalisota. There's nothing happening. Don't try to tell me that something's happening. I want to play to you before we get out of here this thing from Scott Bessent. Because believe it or not, there was a lot of good news today, which I'll talk to you about tonight in terms of economics. But I want you guys to hear this from Scott Bessent. It's just amazing.
IRS called criminal investigations, and these men and women, they are cool cats. they can take apart a balance sheet and they can knock down a door and arrest someone. Like they go out on patrols, they can make arrests. It's this very interesting hybrid force, about 2,500 of them, and they led the charge here. So it was IRS CIs who uncovered the initial fraud and the prosecutions. So it's with that group, with other groups at IRS, and with the powers of the Treasury to track where the money came from, where it's going. We saw this very unsettling news yesterday that many people involved here with the administration of these programs have tried to go back and they recreate documents, change documents, and we're not going to have that. We are going to hold people accountable. We're going to press this to the full extent possible. And like I said, I think that this may just be, it's a cold day outside, so this could be the tip of the iceberg here in Minnesota, but it's probably may not be as prevalent, but the dollars may be bigger and larger in other states. And just to put this in perspective for American taxpayers, for American families, the GAO, the General Accounting Office, believes that there is somewhere between 300 and 600 billion of annual fraud, roughly 10% of government spending that disappears due to fraud.
Did you hear the number? 300 to 600 billion annually that these people are stealing. That's why these nuts are doing this.
And with you later. With that, we bring in Tricia McLaughlin, DHS Assistant Secretary for Public Affairs. Tricia, thank you very much for being here. We know there's an ongoing investigation, and it seems these are live shots that we're watching in Minneapolis right now. More interaction. Tricia, we're watching somebody being taken to the ground by ICE right now. Just give us a sense of what's going on here.
Martha, unfortunately, we are seeing a coordinated campaign of violence against our law enforcement, particularly in Minneapolis. We've seen 4 vehicle rammings, weaponization of vehicles against our law enforcement yesterday. We saw an additional today, and we're seeing an 1,000% increase in assaults against our law enforcement, as well as an 8,000% increase in death threats against our law enforcement. But Martha, if we look back, why is DHS here in the first place? It's because we have seen rampant crime and fraud that's putting the American people in jeopardy. That's stealing from the American people. DHS has arrested 1,500 criminal illegal aliens just in the last 5 weeks alone there in Minneapolis. We're talking about just days ago, a murderer from Ecuador, multiple child pedophiles. I've seen the rap sheets on these individuals. The crimes against American children and against children are just alarming and very heinous. Secretary Noem and President Trump have put these law enforcement officers on the ground to enforce the rule of law and protect those Americans on the ground. What we saw yesterday, what a heavy day. This is so unfortunate that this happened. It was ultimately incredibly preventable. Tricia, what happened? Sorry, go ahead, Martha.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we're just watching arrests that are taking place on the street live here, people being carted off. And I guess my question for you is, one of the missing elements here is any local police presence, because they have basically said they won't intervene in this situation. Tell us the difference when these operations.
Just imagine that. The local police aren't even there. There's nobody there. I think what we showed earlier with all these people having all these different organizations, I think maybe that's what the problem is. I think we're finding out that the reason why these people are here, the reason why they can afford to be here, is they're all on the take. They're all in on the grift and the fraud, and it's there. Think about it. What could make you so angry that you want to go up there and basically assault another human being, whether or not it's a soldier or a law enforcement officer, is because it's going to hit your pocket. And as you read some of the signs that they have up there and talk about there should be no borders, we shouldn't have to have capitalism, all the crap that they're saying, and they're subjecting themselves to being arrested and dragged off and hogtied because they don't have anything else. They're never coming back. We could probably watch this for hours and it's not going to change. These people are nuts.
Into him is what we can see on the video, that he had been dragged by a car in another recent incident. Can you explain that incident to us? Where did that happen? What do we need to know about that?
So on June 17th, in a suburb outside of Minneapolis, this exact same officer, he was making a lawful arrest of a child pedophile, a child sex offender, when he reached his arm into the subject's vehicle, and that subject started closing the window. He drove off and dragged that officer for 50 yards. That officer, clung on to his life. He had 33 stitches and abrasions all over his body, Martha. So you can see when you're making these kind of split-second decisions, when you have the individual in question who's since deceased, that happened just yesterday, this individual, she was stalking agents all day long, impeding our law enforcement, and then when she's coming after the officer with the vehicle, you can see why he would be in fear of his life and of the law enforcement officers around him's lives.
So, all right, let me ask you about that. So you say she was stalking them all day long. What do you have in terms of reports of what they were saying? And did these two agents have interaction with her prior to what we saw on the video with the car?
As the investigation is forthcoming, we're going to give more of that information, and I think the Justice Department is going to be providing that information. But the incident at hand happened at 10:25 a.m. yesterday, Central Time. Our officers.
I want to show you before we go. Elon had actually posted this. It says the same ICE agent was almost killed by a car during an arrest 6 months ago. And here's the news report. I can't show it here. They just put up a graphic notice. So what I would tell you to do is, if you want to see that, I can show it tonight when we go on Rumble, but you can go on to Elon Musk's page. This was posted, I can't see what time it was, 4 hours ago. So you can go on there and look at about, what would that be? 11 o'clock or so, and you can see this. They put a graphic content cover on it, so I can't show it to you because of people would be upset, but you can go see for yourself that this guy was dragged already. But they don't want you to know that. It's insane. They're also showing on television the video of the one that, again, is really pretty bad, of the woman who was shot, and it just proves Tim Walz's lie. Hold on, let's see what she says.
Interaction is, Tricia.
Well, my understanding is the facts, that individual and as well as Governor Tim Walz do not have the facts. Immediately, our officers got medics. There was an ambulance on the scene, which is where the individual was pronounced dead, no pulse, but that individual was immediately given aid. And I do want to say any loss of life is an absolute tragedy, and we do pray for the deceased and her family, and as well, of course, for our officer and all affected in this situation.
Absolutely.
That's exactly what it was, what I told you. Once I saw the picture, just like when I saw Charlie, I'm like, it's over. There's nothing that person could have run across the street and done. She wasn't here anymore. So in any event, tonight, I had something planned, but now I got to replan it because it seems as though President Trump, whether he's going to be calling in or live, I'm not really sure if it's going to be on video or not, but President Trump will be on Hannity tonight. So I'm going to push my night show back to 8 o'clock. I've got a bunch of video I can show you. And then when President Trump comes on at 9, we'll go ahead and cover that live as it happens. But President Trump will be speaking tonight at 9. I hope Hannity doesn't get in the way. I hope he actually lets President Trump talk. Usually President Trump can control Hannity. I have noticed that. So hopefully we'll be able to hear something from the president tonight. So plan on it. I can go ahead and tell you right now, I'm gonna turn on at 8 8 p.m. And then at 8 p.m. I've got some news we can talk about, and I'm sure there'll be much more stuff that we can look at. And then at 9 o'clock, President Trump goes live on Hannity. So let's just hope that Hannity just doesn't keep running his mouth and we can hear more from the president, which I look forward to hearing from him. I think we're getting close. I think we're getting close to the Insurrection Act. I just feel it. Just feel it. All right, let me do super chats and we can get out of here. Let me move that over. And here we go. Susan Cummings, thank you very much. Twice, love fanfare, back Trump 100%. Absolutely. Chio Sop, I hope all those peaceful protesters in Minnesota don't burn down all the daycare and healthcare centers and destroy all the evidence of fraud. Exactly. Pekovsky, man, I'm getting pissed off. Yeah, I know how you're feeling there, bro. I know how you're feeling. Let me move over here so I can actually see better. Stephen Anderson, they are on the Venezuelan list of paid off senators. I haven't been able to verify that list. That's why I haven't talked about it. You'll see people talking about it. I haven't been able to verify it. Pekovsky, what really bothers me is that all this was brewing behind our full-time working life. Yeah. Rick Williams, for years now, protesters have been blocking cars to move freely. And if a driver runs through them, will be prosecuted. But this lib is hailed as a hero and for trying to run over a federal agent. I can tell you, it doesn't, not down here. So I would hope that more states would do what Ron DeSantis has done. Odds of Matt Gaetz getting that role, I think you're talking about the double secret probation assistant attorney general that they're going to hire. I don't think so. In fact, I would almost think the person that would do best in that job would be Harmeet Dillon. She's already there. She's already in place, but I guess it sounds like they want to appoint somebody else and then have to go through the charade of a hearing. You know, I don't know why they'd want to do that, but maybe she's too busy. Rick Williams, Barry, those schools weren't closed due to ICE agents on the roads, but for actual frozen ice on the roads. And the media knew this, but framed it to fit their narrative and of the Democrat Party. Wow, I didn't know that. That's evil. Stephen, stop funding NGOs right now. Exactly. Michael Morse, thank you. Rezing thinks this is what they want, to keep us divided and fighting in order to take our focus off the real enemy, the deep state. It's all a deflection. I completely agree. Anyone else catch the comm that JD dropped against the media? First, he torched their comments, then told them an investigation against all actors pushing this garbage. They just got put on notice. That's what I mentioned to Monica. I was like, what was the room like when they heard that? When they heard that JD Vance was like, we're coming for you guys. We're definitely coming for you guys. You people here who are just making this stuff up. Yeah, I caught that. I'm glad you caught it as well. Good catch. Good catch. Again, anyone, if anybody thinks we'll unite one day, they're kidding themselves. Nope. The very nature of politics is to divide. This is the oldest trick in the book, divide and conquer. Redeem Patriot, Barry's new nickname, Slappy. Every time I put that meme up, people like freak out. But he was slapping hard today, wasn't he? Fang's little brother, Diva Cybertron. Mariah, great to have JD support through this presser. We are going to keep praying and stay 100% positive on our side and dodge the leftists and the lib threats. Absolutely. I thought that she was going to come back on, but I guess she said, no, you got this, bro. I'm good. So it basically was the JD Vance press conference. She just was there to introduce him. Brian Newland, make me some pork fried rice, extra spicy, kid. Oh, you're so mean. He's talking about that kid that was in that protest meeting or whatever. Chiosop, they have groups so they can get government funds. Exactly. They learned. Somebody showed them that. Gene Lee, Barry, play Paul, If I Was the Devil. Yeah, I'll have to look at it and find it for sure. Buddy Sanders, been to 3 cookouts put on by Venezuelan friends celebrating Maduro's arrest. Yeah, I need to come down here. You'll see it. Beverly Litton, Bury the Fraud states are not just Minnesota and Canada. Purple Texas has issues too. Michael Berry, Texas conservative podcaster, talk show, just said almost every major city has been captured. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say every major city has been captured. I would say that probably every major city in the inner city has a bunch of fraudsters in it. Brian Newland, this Ohioan loves the Miami Hurricanes. My first college football game I attended in '87 was a Hurricane game. Yeah, they got a big one coming up, though. Big game coming up. Fakovsky, thank you. Cutting Edge, turn the money off and see what happens to them. Exactly. And James Cagley, if the local police truly believe ICE is putting the citizens in danger, why are they not there to intervene against ICE if needed? Because it's a lie. It's a complete lie. All right, I'll see you guys tonight. Actually, right now I can announce the time. So we'll see you guys tonight at 8 p.m. President Trump comes on at 9 p.m. Because it's network television at night, barring some emergency, the times will be dead on. So not like, she's going to hold a press conference and 30 minutes late. It's network television. So count on him being live at 9 o'clock, and we shall cover that. All right, I'll see you at 8.
Thank you.